This may sound strange at first, perhaps even a little uncomfortable to hear, but prosperity doesn't respond to effort in the way most people have been taught. In fact, some of the hardest working people you've ever met are the ones who struggle the most. Not because they lack intelligence or faith, but because they do everything right externally while remaining completely disorganized internally. And here's the paradox. The more they force results during the day, the more resistance they, unknowingly, create. What if the problem isn't what you're doing, but rather when your mind is truly open to change? Think about it. Throughout the day, the mind argues, doubts, protects old beliefs. But at night, when the world quiets down, something changes. Defenses lower. The subconscious listens. And in that window of silence, a single message can begin to reorganize beliefs, focus, and awareness of success effortlessly. That's why one night, just one, can sometimes do more than months of effort. You've seen this happen countless times. People don't wake up richer overnight, but rather calmer, more lucid, and, interestingly, more confident. Decisions seem easier. Anxiety loses its control. And almost without realizing it, they begin to act differently, choosing better, concentrating longer, trusting the process more. Prosperity doesn't arrive like a miracle. It begins to form silently, internally, as alignment replaces mental noise. And once that inner shift begins, the outside world has no choice but to follow. Why prosperity never begins on the outside. He learned this lesson the hard way, and so do most people. Prosperity never begins with a bank account, a job title, or an opportunity someone else seems to have. It begins much earlier, in the quiet space of the mind, long before the money even appears. People chase wealth thinking it's outside of themselves, but abundance doesn't respond to chasing, but to alignment. When the inner world is disorganized, the outer world perfectly reflects that chaos. And yes, it seems unfair at first, but that's how the subconscious accounts for things. Napoleon Hill realized that two people could work equally hard, pray with the same sincerity, and still arrive at very different places. The difference wasn't luck, education, or even talent. It was belief. Deep, automatic belief. The kind of belief that operates on autopilot. The subconscious doesn't care what someone says they want. It responds to what that person consistently expects. That expectation shapes focus, focus shapes action, and action silently builds the consciousness of success. Prosperity always follows this trail. That's why listening at night is more important than most people realize. When the noise of the day dissipates, the mind becomes receptive, almost defenseless, in a good way. Ideas slip through resistance and begin to reorganize the internal order. It's effortless mental training, a discipline without struggle. And when clarity replaces confusion, something subtle begins to change. Not externally yet, but first internally. This internal change is where the real story begins to unfold. What happens to the mind when the world sleeps? While the world sleeps, something different happens within the mind. The conscious mind relaxes, the noise diminishes, and the subconscious advances silently. It is at this moment that belief becomes easier to reshape, because resistance gives way to a truce. He often explains it this way. During the day, the mind argues. At night, it listens. Prosperity doesn't need force at this moment. It needs repetition and calm. It is here that mindset ceases to be theory and begins to become structure. Napoleon Hill realized that people who struggle with abundance often overload their minds during the day and leave them in a state of mental deprivation at night. Browsing social media, worrying, rehashing problems, all of this feeds the subconscious with confusion. But when someone replaces this with attentive listening, clarity gradually takes over. The subconscious likes patterns, not motivational speeches. That's why nighttime mental training works like compound interest. Small stimuli, repeated frequently, reshape beliefs without stress. Think of it like tuning a radio before bed. You don't fight the static, you gently adjust the frequency. Faith becomes calmer, focus more precise, and discipline lighter the next morning. He has seen people wake up without knowing why, feeling more aligned, more secure, more centered. Nothing magical happened externally, but the internal order shifted. And when that happens, the mind begins to prepare the next step almost automatically. Shaping your subconscious. The power of consistent thinking. There's something Napoleon Hill emphasized that's often overlooked. Your subconscious is like fertile soil. Everything you plant there, good or bad, will eventually grow. You may not see the growth immediately, but the seeds you plant every day through your thoughts, words, and beliefs shape your reality over time. Prosperity doesn't come simply because you desire it. It comes because you've dedicated time to cultivating the right thoughts daily, even if they don't seem to have an impact at first. Now think about it this way. When you're frustrated or overwhelmed, that's exactly what you're planting. Frustration and overwhelm. These emotions keep your mind focused on scarcity. But if you decide, even in those moments, to plant thoughts of abundance, confidence, and patience, your subconscious will begin to absorb them. This isn't about magical thinking. It's about constantly reshaping your mental environment. Just as a garden needs constant care, your mind needs the daily cultivation of positive, growth-oriented thoughts. This is where things get interesting. Some people try to force their mindset, expecting big changes immediately. But true prosperity isn't a sprint. It's a marathon. That's why small, consistent efforts every night, reflecting on what went well, focusing on what you're grateful for, and planting seeds of belief, create enormous changes. And when you wake up, you start to see the world from a different perspective. It's not that the world has changed. It's that your mind has adjusted to a frequency where opportunities become more visible. How belief, emotion, and focus create wealth. Over time, Napoleon Hill learned that belief alone is not enough, and that emotion alone is also unreliable. Prosperity begins to take shape when belief, emotion, and focus begin to work together, not separately. Belief sets the direction, emotion fuels the engine, and focus prevents the mind from wandering. When one of these elements is absent, abundance slowly erodes, almost imperceptibly. This is why so many people feel motivated one day and completely lost the next. Think of focus as a flashlight in a dark room. Whatever it points at becomes clearer, stronger, more real. When the focus remains fixed on scarcity, fear, or urgency, the subconscious assumes that this is the priority and organizes life around it. But when the focus shifts to clarity, purpose, and long-term prosperity, the emotional state naturally follows. He has seen people transform their financial reality simply by changing what they focus on repeatedly every day. This is where emotion becomes dangerous or powerful, depending on how it is used. Anxiety disperses energy, while serene belief concentrates it. This is why prosperity grows faster in a relaxed mind than in a desperate one. When belief is firm and focus is intentional, emotion stops sabotaging and begins to cooperate. And once that cooperation is established, the mind begins to prepare actions and opportunities almost on its own, leading directly to the next stage of the process. Discipline as the true secret behind abundance. Napoleon Hill, he eventually realized something most people don't like to hear. Prosperity isn't built on motivation, but on discipline. Motivation comes and goes, but discipline remains even when there's no enthusiasm. Wealth, in its essence, responds to consistency, not intensity. A disciplined mindset creates inner order, and inner order silently attracts abundance. That's why a success mindset seems boring to outsiders, but powerful to those who practice it. Discipline doesn't mean pushing yourself to exhaustion. It means choosing balance over impulse. Simple habits, like controlling what you listen to before bed, what you repeat to yourself, and what you refuse to mentally consider, create long-term wealth. He often compares this to brushing your teeth, boring, repetitive, but non-negotiable. If you stop doing it for too long, cavities appear. The same happens to the subconscious when discipline is lacking. Here's the paradox that most people don't realize. Discipline actually creates freedom. When the mind is trained, focus becomes natural, and beliefs stabilize. There is less internal conflict, less self-sabotage, and more clarity. Prosperity begins to seem less like a pursuit and more like a consequence. And once someone experiences this inner stability, they begin to realize how many people unknowingly block abundance by doing the exact opposite. Why do most people block prosperity without realizing it? He began to notice a strange pattern. Most people don't fail because of a lack of opportunity, but rather because, without realizing it, they block prosperity every day. It's not dramatic, it's subtle. Small thoughts of doubt, casual complaints, constant comparisons, these habits silently train the subconscious to expect less. And the mind, always obedient, aligns behavior and perception with this expectation. Prosperity doesn't challenge this program, it simply avoids it. One of the biggest obstacles is mental noise. Too many opinions, too much information, too little clarity. When the mind is scattered, focus dissolves, and abundance needs focus to grow. He often explains this as trying to pour clean water into a glass already full of mud. No matter how good the water is, there's no room for it. Inner order is not optional for wealth. It's the starting point. Another silent obstacle is urgency. People rush, push too hard, panic, and without realizing it, signal scarcity to their subconscious. Calm action builds confidence in the mind. Hasty action builds fear. This is why some people work non-stop and still feel stagnant. They are in motion, but not aligned. Once this becomes clear, a new question naturally arises. How to stop blocking prosperity and start cooperating with it? Aligning faith, action, and purpose. Napoleon Hill, it is often said that faith without action becomes mere illusion, and action without faith becomes exhaustion. Prosperity begins to flow when faith, action, and purpose finally walk in the same direction. Faith establishes inner certainty, action gives it form, and purpose prevents everything from crumbling under pressure. When these three elements are misaligned, people feel busy but not fulfilled, productive but not prosperous. Purpose is what filters decisions when emotions fluctuate. Without it, the mind jumps from one opportunity to another, seeking quick gains and losing focus. With purpose, even small actions gain meaning. He saw people transform their financial lives simply by asking one question every day. Does this bring me closer to what I'm building? This question alone eliminates distractions and strengthens discipline almost instantly. In this context, faith is not blind optimism. It is a serene confidence built through repetition and evidence. Each small completed action reinforces the belief, and the belief fuels the next action. This feedback loop creates alignment in the subconscious, and when alignment becomes natural, prosperity ceases to seem random and begins to follow a predictable pattern, leading to a deeper transformation in one's own identity. Becoming the kind of person who attracts prosperity. Prosperity doesn't chase people. It follows identity. Money, opportunities, and growth naturally gravitate toward those who think, decide, and act in a certain way. That's why trying to get rich without becoming centered, disciplined, and lucid rarely works. The subconscious responds to who you believe you are, not who you hope to become someday. Identity shapes behavior, and behavior, silently, shapes results. Napoleon Hill often explains it this way. Prosperity recognizes familiarity. When the mind operates with order, calm, confidence, and purpose, abundance feels safe in that space. Chaos repels it. That's why two people can receive the same opportunity, and only one knows how to keep it. Becoming prosperous isn't about pretending, it's about practicing small behaviors daily until they become natural. Things like honoring commitments, managing attention, and choosing clarity over impulse reshape identity over time. When your identity changes, the effort seems lighter. Decisions become clearer, distractions lose their power, and focus sharpens almost automatically. Prosperity ceases to be something external and becomes an extension of who you are. It's when results stop surprising you and begin to confirm what you already expect internally. And when this internal change solidifies, it reveals the true essence of prosperity. Prosperity as a state of consciousness, not luck. Over time, we understand that prosperity has very little to do with luck and everything to do with awareness. What people call luck is often just an alignment that happens silently over time. When the mindset is trained, the subconscious organized, and belief firm, opportunities begin to arise more frequently. Not because the world has changed, but because perception has sharpened. Prosperity appears when the mind is ready to recognize it. Most people wait for external proof before believing, but successful individuals reverse this order. They cultivate a success mindset first, knowing that the outside world will eventually follow. This is not blind faith or wishful thinking. It is mental training supported by discipline and clarity. When one acts from inner abundance, decisions become more tranquil, actions more intentional, and setbacks less personal. This inner stability prevents wealth from slipping away once it has been earned. Viewing prosperity as a state of consciousness changes everything. There's less anxiety, fewer comparisons, and more patience with the process. Growth ceases to seem urgent and becomes inevitable. And when someone reaches that point, they realize that this journey was never just about money. It was about aligning themselves enough to receive what was already available. This realization silently prepares the mind for the final integration of everything learned up to that point. Now here's a question I want you to reflect on for a moment. If prosperity truly begins within us, what thoughts have you allowed to occupy your space rent-free? Because every idea you repeat today is silently shaping the reality you will wake up to tomorrow. You don't need to change everything at once. You just need to decide what will feed your subconscious from now on. Will it be doubt, urgency and noise, or clarity, discipline, and belief? Think about your routine tonight. What would happen if you treated your mind with the same seriousness you treat your work, your responsibilities, your goals? What if listening became a daily habit, not for motivation, but for mental training? Prosperity doesn't respond to pressure. It responds to consistency. And the smallest decision, repeated every night, can reshape your focus, your faith, and your success mindset in ways most people never experience. So, here's the invitation. Not a promise, not a shortcut. An invitation. Apply what you've heard. Listen again. Observe your thoughts tomorrow. Notice how you decide, how you react, how you focus, and honestly ask yourself, am I becoming the kind of person who naturally attracts prosperity? If this message challenged you, helped you, or made you think differently, let me know. Like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Because this journey isn't about one night. It's about building a mindset that changes everything.